All right. Well, thank you all for being here and coming back to our final session. As those of you who have already read the email, you being the inaugural class, I have misjudged how much time in order to make sure I leave you with everything that will move all the way to essay and composition writing. And I have worked for the past 3 days getting it down to where I'm hoping we can get just go over by about 30 minutes, Mary. I've given myself an hour, but hopefully it'll just be a little more. And as the email stated, those of you who can't stay, we're going to take care of you when we hit that 2 hour mark. So let's just go ahead and dive in. Here we go. As you can see, same things, you know where everything is located now. And I just want to go back, since this is our last session, and just remind you that if these strategies are done with fidelity and followed along in introducing them to students as the Hockman method suggests, this is where we move to help kids when they write effective sentences. That leads into effective paragraphs, which leads into proficient written responses, essays, or compositions. So that's just getting the whole ball of wax in one. So we're going to pick up now. If you, I need to move a bar if I can grab it and get a hold of it. Get it out of my way.
Can you get it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I am good. Now I think I'm trying to move it to the top where I can see all the way down. Okay, we're going to jump into something that I realized during my training was a little bit controversial with some of the lower elementary people who were in the training with me. I did actually did a 312, so it would have been a three, probably 3-5, 3-4 group that felt like teaching kids note taking just kind of added to their cognitive load. But the way that she really presents this, you can make your own decision about the note taking. You know your students and you know their needs and how far they can go. And when we initially get into this, you're going to see that she recommends very few. She's giving you access to all of them, but recommends very few at first. So let's just dig into this. When we're talking about note taking, we're talking about using keywords and phrases or abbreviations or symbols instead of writing on the templates, instead of writing complete, students trying to write complete sentences. So here are the reasons of why note taking is so, she feels is so important and helps relieve cognitive load for students as they move up in grade levels and have to write more intense. And if you notice there, it says page 63. And if you will look in your book, starting on page, it's the bottom of 63, but actually 64 and 65. I want you to know where you have backup for this, even though I'm going to go through it. So as you can see on the screen, note-taking teaches students to distinguish between essential and non-essential material. You know, after they have read something, it boosts that absorption, retention, and comprehension of information. And when I read that, I think, you know, kids are all the time using symbols and short note-taking skills when they text. So, you know, kids may be more receptive to it than you think, but it does promote analytical thinking, and it enables students to outline. And where it comes in most helpful to kids as we move along, when we get into the single paragraph outline and the multiple paragraph outline, it really helps them be able to use those things uh, to their strengths. So what you're seeing on the screen, if you recall, we did the sentence expansion. And when we did the sentence expansion, we were talking about the dotted lines are for notes and solid lines are for complete sentences. So this is where note-taking really comes into play, because you notice those lines are very short. Oops, I'm not sure what I did, but I brought it back. And I want to tell you where in your book, as you can see, page 239, that is where the common abbreviations, if you'll take just a second and flip over to 239, because 239, I call it, it has too much information, especially for a student. But the thing here is this is her giving you all of the information, not saying you're going to use all of the information. And another reason that it's there is we don't want our students getting creative with note taking. We want to give them something specific when you see they're ready for, or you're going to introduce something. We want them all to have an established set of notes so that when they move to independent writing, they have it to pull from. And this next slide actually shows you on the right, that's that poster that you saw on when I gave you a glimpse last week of a bulletin board of a teacher who had put all of these together. Now, when we're looking at it says symbols on the right side. It's not recommended to introduce any note-taking skills till about mid-third grade. So our kindergarten, second grade, K2 is not going to even go there. So the third grade would be when we first start introducing. And then on the left side, you see the practice with a kernel sentence and a student who has used one of the symbols in their why section for gods and goddesses. So that's just a very, very quick, simple example. But here's where note-taking, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about as kids move into more difficult writing. But note-taking is used for multiple activities, for outlines, annotating, summaries. But what the Hockman method truly, truly believes is that we teach them specific note-taking skills. We don't just leave it to their own devices. It's considered an essential skill, and it gives kids something else to reduce cognitive load. So we're going to look at the activities, note-taking activities, and recommended ways to introduce them to your students. As you can see there on the screen, there are 4 activities. One has to do with underlining. And I will say this, as you read through her book in different sections, she is all about underlining, not using highlighters, because kids become, she says that they underline, or excuse me, highlight more information than they need. But again, that's a teacher choice right there. So we're going to give you some examples of activities of how to go about underlining keywords, converting given sentences into notes, then converting given notes into sentences, and then using some of the symbols to annotate key ideas. So let's look at the very first one, the simple one. This is the most simple. It's about underlining, but you give your kids, you use the question word chart and have students underline what you want. So we're looking at keywords and phrases. Then here is an example of converting given sentences into notes. And she is asking, we haven't looked really closely at the symbols chart. So when you're looking at this, convert the given sentence into keywords and phrases. And the student has used the equal sign, which means same as. So artifacts are the same as man-made objects, or artifacts equal man-made objects. Sorry about that. And then when we look at the second example, discovery of artifacts leads to or results in new understandings. And as I said, that's just an example. So let's get into actually looking at the activities to teach the symbols right after we look at another example using the templates. Take just a minute, and this was of mice and men, which obviously is a level 2 example. But the reason that I put this in is because it doesn't matter what level the student is, they still need help with this. They still need reminders. And that's what the teacher has done on this worksheet, that a template that's available to you. You see, they're giving them the definition of every symbol, and then the student is to create a sentence using words, phrases, and abbreviations. And if you notice on the right, this is the anticipated response. This is what we would expect, what the teacher would be expecting kids to do. Now, let's look at teaching the symbols. Each symbol that is on that chart that I showed you, that is available as a poster, it's already in your template file in the participant folder. But this is, and I'm going to go through these really quickly because they're all self-explanatory. This is just different ways to teach. One thing I want to say about this one is look at the equal sign. And you see the sentence, can what follows the equal sign be turned into an appositive? Yes, it can. And it is the one symbol that can be used for more than just note-taking. But she really explains that in the book to you. Now, here we have the plus or the ampersand, which is an and. And I want to tell a funny story. When I was in 6th grade, I learned how to draw the ampersand to use for the word and I used it in something in a written that I had written, and my teacher gave it back to me and made me write the word and 100 times for using it. And here we are now saying, yes, let's help kids. Let's reduce the cognitive load and teach them symbols and note-taking skills. So here you have for the plus sign and the ampersand, and then at the bottom, the arrow going to the right, or leads to or results in. Then we have the side arrow. And the side arrow is meant to, oh, excuse me. It is meant to replace, the cause effect type thing. But when you're looking at this example, the hurricane traveled from Florida to New England, and we turn it into notes. And you see what the student did, and the example shows you the big X about what happened. And the slash sign, she gave a big forewarning about that. Kids love the slash sign and they want to use it in everything. It's to eliminate unnecessary words or to introduce a new idea. It's kind of like taking the place of a comma in a grammatically correct sentence, but we're taking short notes and putting it in. And we have the other slash, forward slash, and then we have the up and down. And there is a little bit of forewarning about how kids can get mixed up with the up and down arrows, increase and decrease, but they also want to use it for words such as below, upwards, those kind of things. So it's just letting you know what could happen. Here's what we're wanting to get to. And again, this is probably 6th grade, maybe, activity. But the reason that I show it to you, especially for you 5th grade teachers, this is something that, this screams on-demand writing. You read a piece of text, a short piece of text, and then you are looking for details, key details. And when we help kids understand the key words is the same as key details, this is a strategy that will come in very, very handy. So I went through that very quickly because you do have the book to get back into more specific information if you want it. Also, let me remind you all about all the videos. The videos of all of these strategies being taught are available to you, and you have access to them. They were on the first PowerPoint that we did. There was the link to the Vimeo videos, and there are some videos, not quite as many, on the TWR website. But take just a second and just read those 4 things on the screen for me, just to kind of sum up. Okay, let's get into what really, because but so is my favorite sentence strategy. The single paragraph outline is my favorite, teaching kids how to take what they've read and turn it into how they can write and answer a prompt. I'm really a promoter of the single paragraph outline. But we're going to talk about not just the outline itself, but a paragraph. And as you can see, a paragraph is a group of sentences that includes details supporting a specific point. And from my experience, that's not the way kids understand it, no matter how many times you tell a student that whatever is in that paragraph, of course, we'll have the topic sentence, but it all supports each other. It's not just telling me something. There's a reason for it. So when we think about the paragraph, here is the important criteria that we have. And if you'll turn to page 74 in your book, before we get into this slide, again, I'm wanting to make sure you understand where there's additional information to support all of this. So if you have the book, your book with you, she gives you directions for the step-by-step, everything that you need. But here, here's what happens when kids are asked to write a paragraph. First of all, they have to think about the structure, the way the paragraphs are sequenced so they make sense to our reader. And then again, the sentence have to be logically connected with transition words that we've already been able to help them with identifying those and making connections. whether it be to indicate a change of direction or to emphasize something. And then we get down to every sentence supports the main idea of the paragraph. And the reason I have the term main idea circled is because in our standards, we do not use the terminology of main idea anymore. We call it central idea in the reading and writing standards. And the reason for that is the reading and writing standards are intended to be used across the curriculum, every content area. And so main idea is a literary term. So the teams that work together, it's a central idea, whether it be content or whether it be literary. But I had mixed feelings about that when that was brought to my attention. But it's the perfect opportunity to teach kids synonyms. Main idea, central idea means the same thing. So there you go. And then we talk about sentence skills that kids need to write a paragraph. All the grammatically correct, clear, the types of structures should vary. Some simple sentences, some compound, some complex. Now let's think about that. That's just 4 things, but we're expecting a lot. We're putting a lot of load on working memory when we just say, okay, here's what you need to do, or this is my expectation when I read your paragraph. That's a whole lot. Well, we've already broken down with the strategies you've got. So we put those tools in the kids' toolboxes, and now let's show them how to use them to get there. And this is just another slide that really emphasizes the cognitive that's happening when kids are expected to use these executive functions in order to write. These match up. The executive function of strategizing in writing, that means to select a topic. Initiate a series of actions. That's where we gather information and evidence. To organize, that's where we're doing our sequencing and information and evidence. Resist distractions, sustain effort, self-monitor, institute needed changes, on and on. So this is just reinforcing the need for what we're doing. For what we're doing and trying the Hockman method, all of these things have been taken into consideration. And how do we help kids write, knowing that executive functions are not even fully developed until you're in your 20s? So, reducing the cognitive load, we're looking at 3 things. We want to help teach our kids to plan ahead, organize, sequence information. And when you're looking at that from the perspective of the steps in writing, we're going to spend most of our time in number 1 and number 3, planning and outlining leads students to and revising leads students to being able to use all the other cognitive executive functions to get there. So one of the things, we're getting ready to introduce the SPO. One of the things that in her work through all these many years, there are many different versions of graphic organizers. But we expect kids to write in a linear pattern, and we expect an essay to be written in a linear pattern, or a composition, or even written responses that they give to us. So she is an advocate for what we just looked at a minute ago, the linear version. Now, I forgot I had this cartoon in here, but it's plotted out. I just have to write it. And when I saw this, I thought of the Venn diagrams that my students used to do in 7th and 8th grade. And I think about my better students would have those filled to the brim. And then I expected them to turn around and write it on a piece of paper in linear fashion and wondered why they got lost and they didn't use the good things they had in their Venn diagram. So I thought, you know what? I was that teacher right there. So let's look at the single paragraph outline. You see the first solid line, that's your topic sentence. That will be a complete sentence. Then when we look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, starting out, you may just want your students to have find 1 or 2 keywords, phrases, abbreviations, symbols, whatever you're going to use with them. You do not have to use the 4. And in fact, in the SPO and the MPO both, the ones that are online for you to manipulate, you can take outlines if you need to. But this one is the original one has 4. We want 4 things about the topic sentence. And then we have solid lines at the bottom. This is where the complete sentence goes. So take a minute and look at that and think in terms of a student in your class who is struggling to get anything on paper. Now, let's go back to the topic sentence. The topic sentence, if you recall, we taught students 3 ways to do a sentence level strategy to write a topic sentence. We've also, when we're looking at the keywords and phrases, let's think in terms of our standards and our test. We're looking for key details from what a student, we're looking for evidence-based, the evidence that you find within whatever you're reading. And then we look at the conclusion sentence, and we're talking about the same 3 sentence level strategies that we introduced in the other sessions. So when you look, just visually look at the SPO, you're looking at a clear beginning, a clear middle, and a clear ending. And so if nothing else, this makes it easier for kids to transfer that information into a complete sentence. And again, we fall back on all the strategies that we've taught kids. Now, here's one example. Take a few seconds and look at that. And one of them, number 1, is pointed out to you how a student changed their notes into a sentence based on what they had read about the bees. Now, look at the topic sentence versus the conclusion sentence. In the topic sentence, the student has used an appositive, and that's one of the skills that we've taught them. But when we come down to the conclusion sentence, they know they have to use something different. They're being taught. So now they use a transition word directly from the conclusion chart. So the reason I want to point that out to you so specifically is because that's where those posters that you saw, that's where they are so valuable, where if a student, if we're training our students to know where to go when they're taking an assessment, especially, Where can I go for help when I go blank? Well, you have these, you have all these things that you've taught them. So this is an example of an SPO plan is not a draft. It's not meant to be a draft. What you see on the left is one that's completed correctly. What you see on the right is one that is not, because the student has written out a full sentence. You know, these are meant to be done quickly to help kids be able to go in quickly and do what they need to do. They're not meant to take a whole class period, or to take, well, you could probably take a whole class period because most of them are only 45 minutes long anyway, but they're not meant to be done over days. It's meant to be able to go in and use it in a quick way. Well, if they're writing complete sentences, it's not going to happen. So, why should we teach the single paragraph outline? And if you'll flip over to page 80, I can get mine turned over. She gives some really good, she calls it building the framework for outlining. And what you see on the screen is basically in the book too. But, you know, we have to continue to have students practice these sentence level skills, even though we've come into the single paragraph outline. And on page 81, she sums up all about the single paragraph outline. And one of the things that jumps out at me is when we, on page 81, when you look at bullet number 4, students don't need to take every piece of writing through all 4 steps. In other words, she says to stay in the single, just in the outline until kids really get a grasp on that. And because it's much easier to revise while they're still in the single paragraph outline until they've compared to a full-blown paragraph. And what happens with the single paragraph outline is, I love the last bullet there. It modulates the cognitive load. We can't take away the complete cognitive load, but we can put it into chunks for them by using the single paragraph outline. They're still going to have to do all those other things that are on that screen right there, but we do it in a logical order, and hopefully they would transfer that into, even when they're given a test, they can sketch this out. It's not hard to do. So let's get into, those are all the reasons why. You've seen some examples. Now, here are some scaffolding activities. And these activities go from very simple as you can be with writing a paragraph, all the way to writing full-blown essays and compositions. So you may, again, you as the teacher, you know your students' needs, you pick and choose. So let's get into them. Here are all the activities that you will see examples of. And especially 3rd grade teachers, notice what's in red there for you. You're not going to use any of these activities that I'm getting ready to share that require note-taking, at least not until maybe towards the end of the year if you've introduced any of them. You're going to focus mainly on the 2 strategies that we have for writing topic and conclusion sentences, which is sentence types and subordinating conjunctions. And then you notice the asterisk after given topic / prompt, write the topic sentence. And you see it says use one of 3 suggested strategies. So you're going to see 3 examples, but only choose to use one of them specifically with your students. All right, introducing the SPO. The very first thing that she really advises, and even using it very similar to what she's got here, that we're always trying to meet the needs of our readers. In everything we do, that's what we keep in mind. And so stressing these 3 things about what a paragraph should do. Well, the topic obviously would be given by the teacher. The audience is going to be given by the teacher. And let's look at that section that says audience. This is where you really, you're going to write, students will write their paragraph differently if they're writing to 3rd graders based on climate change skeptics. And then there's always a purpose. The topic is climate change, but our purpose is to explain effects of global warming of penguins. And the purpose brings us back again to those expository writing terms. Choosing one of the language from that is very, very important, because we organize our details differently depending on what our purpose is. So we are explaining, we're not trying to compare and contrast something, we are explaining the effects of global warming on penguins. And she was very adamant about talking about, you have to bring this back to kids every time and talk about it, so that we're kind of giving them skills that when they become independent writers, they'll go back and pull, pull from. So here's an example. She says this is the best way, the 2 best ways to introduce the SPO, either through a brainstorm or a narrative. And if you'll flip over to page 102. Give you just a second to get there. And let's just read the subheadings because she calls this a writing roadmap, and I think that is absolutely true. We flip over to 103 and 104. We have more, and then we move into the examples. And then you're also going to have the slides that I'm about to share with you, how to conduct the brainstorm. Here's the sequence for doing the brainstorm. All the instructions right there. Introduce the topic, audience, purpose. We just did that. The teacher provides the topic sentence, or either you have them generate one as a group, so on and so on. Very, very specific. So here's an example. The teacher's chosen winter, and the audience is people from warm climates. And the student's purpose is to describe the unique features of winter. So here we have our SPO. The teacher has decided our brainstorm will be our topic sentence. About our topic sentence, winter is a unique season. So the brainstorm will be, what makes winter a unique season? And here's what happens. You should always choose a topic that you can get 12 to 15. You choose an easy topic when introducing it, and you always choose a topic that you can get 12 to 15 details for. And then we move kids from just the brainstorm. The teacher then models categorizing. So we organize and get our everything we've come up with that could possibly end up in our paragraph. We move them into categories. And then now we have this is a completed one. Now we have the SPO, and obviously this is, you need to introduce it together. Older kids, they can have the blank template there, and the teacher is leaving it. Younger kids, it may all be done on the whiteboard or however you choose to do. But what you do in this one is you see down the sides all those categories that students came up with. Now they choose the words that will match their category that they think fits with winter is a unique season. And then after that part is finished, you see we have a concluding sentence. We have winter is a unique season as the topic. Then clearly this exciting season is unlike any other. And all of this is done through the teacher modeling. And the teacher modeling is the most important thing in this process. Kids hearing what you're thinking and how you're moving toward this. Now we have the narrative form for introducing the narrative, introducing the SPO. So let's look at it just a minute. I was reading those. You see that one of them has an X on them. Kind of look at both of those, and you do not have to answer, but why in your mind would the one on the right be X'd out? It's because it is creative writing. It's not, you want to, especially when you're first teaching this to kids, and 102 will give you some information about that, but you choose a narrative that is a process. So you see the words that are in red in the paragraph on the left, because you want to give them paragraph that they can use the SPO format the best with. So there's the instructions for it again. I think I've left out a slide. I was going to show you the finished one. I'm very sorry about that. So let's just look at for introducing the SPO with the narrative. Gives you, I like the fact that she gives you suggestions, but she gives you an alternative too. So let's look at another one. Here we are. Here's the narrative. Carving a pumpkin is the topic. Someone who has never carved a pumpkin is our audience. And we've gone to explain the process of carving a pumpkin. Look what you see down the side when you're doing a narrative. You can, this really helps the cognitive load, where we have steps. What are the steps to carving a pumpkin? First, then, next, finally. So we're teaching chronological order, and that is the recommendation with level 1, using the chronological order first. And then we see the concluding sentence. Carving a pumpkin is hard work, but it's worth it. So you see that what we're teaching kids is that our topic sentence and our concluding sentence don't need to be the same. And I don't know about how many of you all had it, but I always had, basically, would have students that would say, okay, I've told you everything I know, and that's how they wanted to conclude it. I'm going to tell you about in the topic sentence, and okay, I've told you everything I know. And I'm sure there are those of you out there that can relate to that. But what you're seeing on the left side came from the time and sequence chart 1. First, then, next final. So just wanted to remind you about that. And what we're doing with this one, we're going to take it to a full blown. So when you're introducing, if you want to take it, and this is one that's simple enough and of high interest enough that students would probably want to take it. In fact, this one is recommended to be used K-12, even high school students. Taking this one as an example and writing it out the first time with the high school students, see what comes up. You wouldn't with the high school students, you would not give the words first, then, next, finally. But the process itself, let's look at about they've written in their notes, number 3, candle inside. And they're going to begin their sentence with next, put a lit candle inside so your jack-o'-lantern will glow at night. Instead of next, put a candle in it. We by this time, we have taught kids what the expectation is, and you practice this plan so that they internalize the process. This strategy is distinguish the topic sentence from given details. So something that you've read, either maybe have read aloud or that kids have read, and you have the sentences. Every sentence is about whatever the text is. But what we want students to do is to understand what components should be in a topic sentence, which we would have taught them that before. And we ask them between these 4 sentences, which one is the topic sentence. Now, obviously, you're probably not going to start with 4 sentences like this one is. Your first ones are going to be 2, maybe just 2 sentences. Which one is it? And then we take it, practice them a little bit more. You find the topic sentence. You have to decide which one is the topic sentence. Now, what order should the other sentences be? And this is difficult. This is difficult. So be prepared for that. So what you're doing here is you're identifying the topic sentence first, then the sequence of which order they're going in. Here is an example of math, this being a perfect strategy, activity to use in math. Then we move them a little further along and we ask them to select appropriate details from a list. Now, this says amusement parks are exciting. Which of these words on the right would you consider to be exciting? So we're teaching vocabulary. And this is a very simplistic one, but you can design it however you want to, because you're really wanting them to focus on the details of how to provide the best evidence in their paragraph when they look at this. So, use either the content you're teaching or, if nothing else, very familiar content when you're first introducing this strategy. Then we take them a little deeper, selected appropriate details from a list, but now we have 2 topic sentences, and which belong where? Exciting or exhausting? Where does the language or the phrases? Because see, you're increasing the rigor here. And that's just a snapshot for you of what is available, the template that is available to help you with that. Once you get them, one of the things that I always say about what you're looking at right now with the SPO and all of these strategies that may seem very simple, but what you're doing is you're setting kids and you're laying the groundwork for argumentative writing and informational explanatory writing, which is our intent. That's where we want to get them to be able to do. And all these little pieces that we're putting together gives them, I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but it gives them tools in their toolbox to get there. Okay, eliminate relevant, irrelevant details. Here's the same book we were looking at earlier, but now we're going to determine, first of all, the topic sentence, and then we're going to determine which of these details really support what I just read or what I just heard, Julian's world. Which ones really support that topic sentence? Catalog cats helps readers understand our garden in many ways. And you can see the answers there and the one that was omitted. And this is a level 1 example. We're going to do the same thing after they've practiced it using sentences. Then we're actually going to share paragraphs. We're going to have them, after you've scaffolded the learning up until this point, you can move to giving a paragraph for elimination of those irrelevant details. And what we have to teach kids is we're looking for details that don't support the topic sentence. And so we really focus in on the topic sentence first of all before we ask kids to look for the irrelevant details. And one of the teacher tips that were given to us is that teacher-created paragraphs, not just pulling something out of the text or the story, is a teacher-created one really works the best, and students seem to do well with those. Another example of a way to teach kids, this is actually we're teaching compare and contrast here. We're teaching the text structure when we're asking for writing the topic sentence and then write some details about the characters, the cricket in Times Square. So you see what's happening there. And see, we're leaving the concluding sentence blank on this because our point in teaching this one is that we teach them to pick out relevant details about each character. Now, let me back up right here. And there's nothing to say that you can't go on and create a concluding sentence. But the activity itself is focused on the finding the key details, which is what we ask our kids to do in on-demand writing. Here we have another one. Given a topic sentence, write details, and you actually have the prompt. To me, this screams, again, on-demand writing, because this is a way to practice it and get that in their heads about, they can draw this out on their own if they want to. They can think of these terms. TS, here are all my details, in the CS, then I'll write the concluding sentence. And what we're doing here, and we'll see it later, is before you ever write a topic sentence or a concluding sentence, you make sure you've got the right details and that you've got what should be a part of any prompt or task that's being asked of you. So what we have here, here's the prompt. And it says, use details from the story to justify Heracles, I guess I should say, heroism. So take a minute, make that connection of what you're seeing, what the student has done. Look at number 1 and number 2. We have an evidence and a reason. And the reason that I'm pointing this out is this is why so many of our students do not score proficient on-demand writing, or even our good students who we think should be distinguished don't make it there. Right here, we have the evidence, but when we teach them to find a reason for why, it makes more in-depth, knowing more in depth about what is taking place, and we want them to transfer that into a written sentence. So when you're doing these strategies, you are practicing what the expectation is for on-demand writing, because so many of our students found the evidence and they didn't know what to do with the evidence once they did. So they just wrote out straight sentences about the evidence they found, not following up with I always say they didn't follow up with the because. So that's why I love because, but so well. It makes kids take the information and do more with it than just leaving it hanging. I want to stop for just a second. I've gone on for 45 minutes. And does anyone have a question you want to open your mic and ask, or that you want to put in the chat box? Let's do about 2 minutes of that, Mary. And see, I feel like it's so hard on Zoom sessions to know when you really need to ask a question.
I was just going to say, I can see how that last organizer is so helpful with on-demand writing.
Absolutely.
It's just being able to
Thank
show
you.
them how you have the evidence. You have to have that reason also. So I really love that organizer.
The SPO and because but so are dream activities for on-demand writing. Actually, those are the 2 things that caught my eye the most. And then when I realized, as I got deeper into this, there were even more strategies that help our kids. But I'm a believer in the SPO. Thank you for sharing. We'll finish up this section because I do have a couple more examples, and then Mary will take a break.
Okay.
Here is a revolutionized material. The teacher had been using this type of organizer on the left, and she turned it into the organizer on the right. And as you can see, she used the formatting. You can tell that's not the template for SPO that we have in the Writing Revolution, but she just took it, typed it her own self, and rainforest animals and plants are highly dependent on each other. So we have another science example. Now this this is where, we're beginning to get in deeper. And this is where we talk about, you give kids a topic or a prompt, and they write the topic sentence. We start looking at, remember those up there in the right-hand corner there, the 3 ways to write a topic sentence and a concluding sentence. So we're asking them to practice the topic sentence in this. And what I want to really point out up there where it says topic, don't say what are the health benefits of water. You're just putting a topic up there. And you're kind of leaving it hanging. It's not a complete sentence. It's just health benefits of water. And obviously that's a topic that has been taught in class. And so you're telling the teachers, the students, use one of the sentence types. Use one of the 4 sentence types to tell me something about the health benefits of water. Use a subordinating conjunction. Use an appositive. So that's why we were talking about, these are all the sentence strategies that you use are recursive. They're used over and over, all through the whole writing. You will always come back to those because we've given kids a tool to do it with. Here's an example of where we're really focused with topic, audience, purpose. You give it to kids, then you tell them to write a sentence based on what you have on the sheet to explain the advantages and disadvantages of using technology in the classroom. Another very simple one, given details, write the topic sentence. And keeping up in there, use one of these 3 ways to do it. And here is an example of give a topic and details, and we move into conclusion. And that's where we're going to stop right now, Mary. 4 o'clock.
It's 4:47.
See, you forget I'm on.
You're on Central Time. It's 4:47 here. So you want to have them come back at 5?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, everybody, just take a look.
Before we move, it's a good place to stop before we move into conclusion sentence.
Okay, so just take a little stretch break, get you get you a cup of coffee if you need it, or water, and stretch your legs just a minute. See you back at 5. I think I'll stretch too, Carol.
You go right ahead. Sometimes I get to the point where I feel like Charlie Brown's teacher. When you can't see faces, I feel like I'm killing them.
It's hard to know, isn't it, when you're on virtual? It really is. I agree.
Yes. You may need to get up and walk too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get up and just stretch my legs.
I just got a picture of a bumblebee. Going to her daddy's work. It's the state police post there in Pikeville is having their trunk or treat, I guess, for the officers, workers, whatever, or I don't know, it may be open to the public, but I bought Sadie a bumblebee costume.
Oh, bumblebee! Oh, I bet she's a doll.
And it's a prissy bumblebee. It's one of those little skirts.
Oh, how cute!
Justin is dressed up as a beekeeper, and Shay is dressed up as a beehive. So
I love it. That's a good ensemble there. It sounds like it.
It's just so cute. They just a second ago sent me a picture.
I feel for the beekeeper though. I'd say they have a lot to keep up with little Sadie, don't they?
She is not afraid of anything. And if she sees somewhere she wants to go, she goes. And Rowan's
Oh my.
about that bad.
Oh my. It's hard to believe October's almost over.
I just opened the chat. Oh, poor Denise. She had internet issues on the, she had told me, you know, on session 1. But I told
Yes.
her that one was in
Yes.
the recorded. That's the great thing about this. I know that was so helpful for me. Do you know all of those are still up? And they had told me September 14th they would be taken down.
Oh, wow. Somebody's not keeping up with that,
Really
thankfully.
helped me. I kept going
Yeah.
back to them.
Oh, power of pause.
Yes.
Wait.
Yeah, pause.
Kim?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Okay, let me do it this way.
Someone's having issues.
Hey. Yeah.
We can kind of hear you, Kim.
Okay. The participation folder,
Yeah.
whenever I upload it, does it just automatically go into my drive?
If you downloaded it, it will go to your drive, but I use the starred feature. If you will click on the arrow, like if you go to your Google Drive and you click on the little caret beside of the name of the folder up at the top of the cookies, and you click on organize and you click add to starred, you'll see on your left hand side the starred folders. It will always be in there unless you remove the star. You can always get back to it. I discovered starred and did not realize that existed till about a year ago.
Okay, I'm on that folder that you gave us. Now,
Okay.
what do I do?
Go to your folder, and what you're going to do, let me pull it up. So up there at the top where it has a little caret beside participant folder that you can drop down.
Hold on just a second. Are you on there so I can see it?
Can you see it?
All right. No. Okay. Okay, I see shared with me. Yes, I see the caret. Yes, I'm good now.
Okay. Click the caret, and then it says, then it goes to organize. See where it says organize? Hover over it and click that add to starred.
Okay.
So when you click on that, you can go over to your left side there on the index side that has like your priority, my drive, shared drives. Click on starred, and it'll be the only thing in there now.
Oh,
Did you find
well,
it?
yes, I found it. So
Yay!
is that everything? Is that everything we did for all 3 classes?
Yep, that's got everything in it from all 3 classes, all the PowerPoints, everything is in there. And the recordings for all 3 sessions will be there. The first session is there, but 2 and 3 will be added as they get completed and edited. So everything's going to be right there in that folder. And anytime you click on starred, you're always going to be able to find it there.
Well, I did not know how to do that. You taught me something new today.
Mary taught me how to do that last summer, and I have everything started.
I love
But you can
that.
find it. But you can find it.
That
I
makes
love
sense. Thank you, ladies.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I always enjoy everything that you all do. I enjoy, so I really appreciate it. I learned so much.
Oh,
Thank
you. Thank you,
you.
Kim. Appreciate that. Well,
we don't want to waste your time with what we do. We want you to leave.
Oh, never. Mary, is your father-in-law better?
No, he's not doing well at all. We had to reach out to memory care, so just keep him in your prayers, please.
Oh, I will. I will. I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you. But no, the starred feature, when I found that changed my life in Google. I could never
Oh,
find anything in Google Drive. It was like, okay, somebody share something with me and never could find it again.
it keeps you from having to throw everything away, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Clean out your files so you can find what you want.
yeah, yeah. That that was something. And then my bookmark bar, figuring out how to do folders with it, that helps me too. Especially, you know, when you're dealing with so many things. You are welcome, Kim. So glad you like it. But just remember that you got to go back and click on starred. That's the one thing sometimes it's kind of hard to remember if you've not used it. Kind of like your favorites now, your starred favorites in Google. All right. Five. Are you ready? It's 5 o'clock. Had a little break. I stretched my legs.
All righty. Now we're going to move into lost a minute. Lost my bar. I don't know. There it is. It moved to the top on me. I keep moving things around and forget where I put them. That's what I do at home.
Me
Okay.
too.
Now we're going to move into given the topic sentence and the details, let's write the conclusion sentence. And there's a reminder there about the 3 ways. Now, remember, third K3, you're only going to use the first 2, sentence and subordinating conjunctions, because you have not really taught the apposite yet. So when you're looking at the example at the bottom of this page, you can see that the conclusion chart was also given to students to use on the sheet. But here you're seeing scientists are proposing solutions to minimize the damage of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. There's the details. And then the concluding sentence, the damage to the Pacific Ocean must be addressed. The student did not go back and repeat what they had in the topic sentence, like mine used to many years ago. So here we go. Given we're now getting kids to the point where we want them to start working independently. They're given a topic, a prompt, and they create it themselves. So that's just an example for you of one of them. Take a few minutes and look at it. And one thing I want to mention here is just because you have 4 lines of notes with details does not mean you necessarily have 4 paragraphs to write. So we have to, because see, some of the details that they find can be connected into one sentence. And, you know, at first when you're teaching it, it's not going to be that in depth. But we do want to remind them that just because the SPO has 4 or 5 or 6 lines of details, that doesn't mean that's how many paragraphs. Number one, we have to, you know, in some of the other strategies, we say what is relevant and irrelevant, because they're still going to choose some irrelevant details. They're kids. So I just wanted to share this with you. These are voices from other teachers. In fact, they're from the training that I was in. It was in the chat box, and I went in and copied and pasted real quick. But here, after having what you all just had, here's what they said about the benefits of the SPO. And then, they turned it into an SPO for us. But here's some of the things that were popping up. So I want you just to take a second, maybe 1 minute, and read what everyone, and see if it's connecting for you. And just like someone said a little while ago about, they could see that the form will really be helpful for on-demand writing, because the intent of on-demand writing is that students read it, they know what it's about, what's the central idea that it's about, and what evidence or details in the passage can I find to be able to give a reason of why it's important. And then when we talk about the topic sentence and concluding sentence, they work from what they've found, what they've determined to be relevant and is evidence. Then they work for their topic sentence and conclusion. The graphic organizer doesn't make kids start writing. That's what you have to remember about the SPO. It's not a blank piece of paper or a piece of paper with a bunch of lines on it that's saying, write all this for me. It's a plan ahead of time before they write. And I just think it's great. I just think it's a great resource to have. Now, I want to remind you that in the template folder, you have this handout. These are tips for all of the activities. Look through it. You're seeing everything, and where we are right now is the SPO and the SPO scaffolding activities. But this gives you all the information. I've gone through it quickly. You have a resource there. You also have a handout similar to this that says list of the activities. So, and it's organized just like this, and it lists everything that we've done. And then the third handout that you have is the purpose for each activity. So you have it all condensed for you. Yes, you have the book to fall back on, but you have these three. I think these are three of the best handouts for teachers. The templates are marvelous, but I have to do a lot in a day's time. You do as a teacher, and you always have these things to fall back on. So I wanted to remind you that they're there. And then here is answers frequently asked questions based on the SPO. And so just take a second and look through those, or maybe 1 minute. I love that they go back to the questions that they get most often, and then they share them with us, the answers, because if one teacher has that question, more than likely thousands of teachers have that same question about where to focus, especially when you're getting a training in such a quick amount of time. So now we're going to move into revision. Revision is very difficult. You know that from working with kids. And Dr. The Hockman method is a firm believer that how to revise needs to be explicitly taught. In fact, everything that she does in all this work, it's about explicitly giving kids a tool to do the things we do. And when we're looking at revisions, of course, you know what a summary is, very difficult, but then a full-blown composition will move into the MPO for that. It's the planning tool for essays and compositions. But what another thing that we're embedding within what we're getting ready to do is strategies to get students to write effective introductions and conclusions. We've really focused a lot on the topic sentence, but as you know, they have to have an introduction to be considered, especially with the essays and compositions. So again, here we have the 4 steps in writing. And again, reminding kids that revision is not having to redo your work. What revision is how do I make my writing better so that whoever reads it understands it better? Changing that from, if you want to get a good score, you need to do such and such. Let's make it better for whoever's going to read it, like the books that you read or the stories you read. Just making it more concise and coherent. And you can't get that result by just giving them a checklist. And I'm guilty of that back in when we were doing portfolios. Did you think about this? Did you think about that? And she is all about no checklist and no highlighters. So I broke 2 of her rules for several years when I was in the classroom. But we're going to explicitly teach students how to revise and let them understand. And I'm not sure I made this clear distinction between revision and editing, because revision is all about your reader. How do you make your writing better so that the reader knows what you want to tell them? But editing is just fixing capitalization and those kinds of things. So here is an example of, editing is correcting the mechanics, the spelling, the grammar, and punctuation, but revising is improving the substance. And this is just a couple examples. I know they're not really clear that you could see, but it's what a teacher, some feedback and things that teachers have given students in the example. But number 1, teaching kids that we revise first. We revise. Revise is not checking your spelling. Revise is, can the reader know what you want to say? So why do we teach revision? Well, kind of said all that, but let's take 30 seconds.
Got a great comment in the chat. Carol says, from Martin, from my experiences, revise is by far the hardest to get kids to buy in on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why she is so adamant about, in her method, the Hockman method, that we teach kids how to do it so that it's not so hard. But you can see the page where all of it begins for backup for you. She gives some really good examples. And what we're trying to do in teaching them explicitly all of the things that have led up to this point is to give them the language of how to do it. So when you look at what all we've done so far, sentence strategies lead to revision. So this is just pulling up some of the things, expand your sentence using question words. Vary your sentences by using more of the sentence types, or use a subordinating conjunction here to show a change of direction. Go back to the transition posters for help to add more clarity. So, we have all of these things now where, I think about, in student conferences on their writings and things, and I'd say, tell me more about it. Tell me more about it. Just let me know more about it. Instead of saying, why don't you use one of these words to tell me more about it? Or look at the so-and-so chart. With this Hockman method, you as the teacher have more tools to explain to kids what you want them to do. And it's one of the reasons another reason I like the method so well. This just helps us as the teacher, because you do not get this kind of help in your teacher prep. It's just not there. We're expected to teach kids how to write, but we're limited in some of the knowledge that would make a better writer. Well, the Writing Revolution team has been doing this for 20 years, and Judith Hockman even longer than that. So to me, she's hit on what we need. So revision activities, there are 4 of them, and we're going to look at an example of each one. And everything that's been taught to students at this point should be given that, they're going to use them. They're going to use them in revision. Now, first of all, let's see an example. Now, let's start with the 3rd grade one. Here is a beginning, what we commonly see. Start with the 3rd grade and read up. So the person that I'm writing about is, I will be writing about Kobe Bryant. I'm writing about Emily Hayes from the Amulet. The character I chose to write about is Ash, and I can't read the last. But without having any other tools, this is how students start their writing. And I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm saying all of these things. So where we want to start with revision is right here. Revising topic sentence. So one of the videos I watched was a teacher putting sentences up and saying, I've decided I want these to be better. Can you help me? So see what the start is. These are the reasons why hurricanes are dangerous. And then she said the kids told her, you can do a sentence type. And anyway, all of this occurred together. Kids working on work that is not theirs, work that they are making better based on what they've learned so far. So this is, the think aloud is so important. This one, obviously, example is a level 2, but with younger children, you can always just do it out loud. Just say, that's kind of boring. I think I want to do something else about. Can you give me some words about hurricanes? And you go from there. So this, I know that you can't read this, so I'm going to read it out loud for you. But this is typical student work where the topic sentence mimics the conclusion. Jenny is an interesting character because. This is why Jenny is an interesting character. Seen that before or heard that before? That is everything I know about blue. these are the facts that I gathered. Just very straight and simple, and we know that. That's just, I just thought those were cute. Throw them in. We're online. We're tired. But here is an example of one that is completed. Now remember, we used juicing, the juicing article before, but what's taking place in this revising concluding sentences, we've added the transition chart and the article, and look at the conclusion sentence. Now, you know juicing is bad. So the teacher has said, I need a better concluding sentence, and I need it based on one of these three. And remember, K3 would be one of the two ways that we can make concluding sentences better. And I'm not going to read those to you. Take just a second to read the sentence type, a positive and subordinating conjunction. And then we've added using a transition within the conclusion from the conclusion chart. And I foresee, because, you know, sometimes when you have charts on the board, your class, there'll be one or two students that really like one of these and will use in conclusion all the time. And you also, then you have the followers of that student that's seen that student use it and do well. So, you know, you be ready for that. Be ready for that with the charts, because and then you have those kids that I want to use them all at some point. So, you know what will happen. Okay, this is the same student. On the left side was how they wrote, excuse me, this is how they wrote a topic sentence and a concluding sentence in the fall. I like the dad in a quiet place for these reasons. And then the conclusion is, as you can see, this is why I like the dad in a quiet place. He did a lot of cool things. In spring of 22, after they had, you know, introduction and used to all of these sentence strategies, here's the same student. Esperanza, a wealthy girl, has transformed throughout the story by changing her personality. And then the conclusion, although Esperanza was a terrible model at the beginning, she became an extraordinary person. So we see, once kids have been taught and given ways to write, they'll use them. I liked all of this with it. Overused words. I bet you all could add several more to this list too. But these are the most commonly overused words in student writing. And we're getting ready to talk a little about varied vocabulary. And you saw what happened just in the example before, because we want to teach kids to use rich, varied vocabulary, and we want it to be precise and specific. So this is an example of teaching kids, even at level 1. You can see that's basically a brainstorming activity, and you can find more information like showing there, page 95 and actually 96, 97 and several. But I'm pointing this out as a very simple way. Here are some other words for fun and some other words for time. How could we make our sentence better? And it's you're brainstorming to generate more precise words. And on 95, page 95, Judith Hockman calls make it sparkle. Make your sentences sparkle with words that you use. But one thing you have to be cautious of, do not ask kids to come up with a synonym of these words. You want another word that means, but don't, or that we could use, because not all of these words that you're seeing here through the brainstorm are synonyms of fun. So we're going farther. And here's why it's very important for you to understand this. Now, I'm pulling us back to our standards for a moment. And every grade band, K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, within the standards has a one-page overview that gives you more expectations around instruction that is not always included in the standard. And what you see in the yellow box, take just 1 minute and read that. I'm sure some of you have maybe had a little bit of information, or you have heard about the Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary. The expectation that's stated specifically on this page in the standards document says that we should be very aware of and making sure that we're making the connection for kids, and we're enforcing Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary. If you look up there on the right, you have a quick definition of what Tier 2 vocabulary is, because that is the most used in the school setting. And not only is the expectation that we teach kids these words, or that they become familiar with them and learn them, it's that they use them in their writing. And this is the perfect opportunity to tell you all of these words on the left side are Tier 2 words. This is what we're talking about. We're building their vocabulary. The Tier 2 words are used, and you'll see them in lots of content areas. You're going to see Tier 2 words all across the board. Let's just say it that way. Now, when we talk about Tier 3 words, those are low frequency words vocabulary that you would teach, that's probably going to be specific to a domain. And you see 3 little examples there, but I'm going to use 2 examples too. Very, very simple. The word speeches and the word democracy. Speeches is a Tier 2 word because it's used in many other areas. Democracy, where are you most going to find that word used, that term? Social studies. So that when I do my trainings with standards, I do take about 20 minutes of the training to help teachers understand how to identify Tier 2 and Tier 3 words, so that you can make sure that students are being exposed to them. Well, then we come to the writing revolution and helping students expand their sentences, and in making better topic sentences and concluding sentences. This is the same thing. We're doing the same thing. So this is definitely meeting what the expectation of the standards are. And if you have not read these, the K5 one is on the screen behind there, but that's on page 20 in the document, and there's 445 pages of that. So page 20 at least is early. And then grade 6-8 is on page 222 and 912 on 319. So there's some very good information, and it really talks about the writing, about the evidence-based writing. And that's what this whole informational, explanatory, finding the evidence, finding the details, that's what we're doing. So here is a scaffolded example about helping kids vary vocabulary. You give them, they've read Because of Winn-Dixie, or it could be anything in your content area. And we're going to brainstorm a list of adjectives. This is where we get to say describing words to describe Opal. But look what word got put in timeout. Nice, because everybody was saying Opal is a nice girl, so we can't use nice. That word's been put in timeout. So the teacher leads the kids to other words and then write a topic sentence about Opal containing an appositive. And of course, that's usually probably that says this is a third grade example. It would have to be the end of third grade because we don't do appositives till the end of third grade, but I would say this is more a fourth grade example. Now, here's some inventive ways that partner schools, that I thought I gotta share this. They're telling they're words that cannot be used in their writing. Now, word kill was one that I was a little leery of, but it's like roadkill. And so these are words they can't use in their writing. Then we have trashy words. And look what's there. Stuff, I think. Now, this would be more middle and high, the vetoed vocab. These are words you can't use in your writing. And then we have humanities profanity. So the humanities teacher is saying these are words you can't use in your writing. And I thought that was kind of inventive, but they shared those with us, and I just wanted to share them with you.
Carol, 15 minutes to 5:45.
Okay, all right. We are going to go over a little bit. Varying vocabulary. Here we go with list. You can do this. These are things from schools. And then varying vocabulary is divided into content areas. Now we're going to move to the unelaborated paragraph. Now, this is the unelaborated paragraph activity is unique to the Hockman method. She's the only one that brought that out. It's revising a bare bones teacher created paragraph using all the strategies they've learned. And there's an unelaborated example of an unelaborated and one that is elaborated. But here is why we have those kids to do, why we have students to do the unelaborated paragraphs. And if you'll look, flip over to page 114, you're going to see you have lots of backup on ways to do this. But number one, it helps them use the strategies without the teacher there. Well, that's what we want to get to. We want to get to, and it's a way to help kids revise their own work too. So here it is in a nutshell. It's a bare bones paragraph. The goal is helping kids revise. You as the teacher, whatever you give them should not have any errors in it. The goal is not editing. The goal is revising. And you give them explicit instructions, 4 to 6 sentences. So here is an example of an activity that you can do. Take just a second and look at that. This is a whole class example of what do we do? How do we get supporting details about what's in the unelaborated? Now there's a video, a 4th grade video. It's Miss McDermott, and she is doing this, modeling this using a text called The Witches, if you want to find that. Another example of a way to do it, again, you can do it whole group or give kids templates. And here's an example of the template itself. And there are technical tips also included with the within the template itself. You're looking at this one. It's a social studies example. Again, here's from some of the partner schools. I can revise an unelaborated paragraph by using the following strategies. And so they have a bulletin board that here's how I can make this paragraph better. And in the process, kids are doing revision. And remember, the goal is not rewriting student work. And the feedback that you give to them should be grounded in the TWR language. It should not be evaluative feedback. And here, right here are all the instructions, because I just went through that very, very fast. These are the suggested instructions. And we're going to get started with summaries. And we'll get into it. I'm watching my watch here. I've got it up in front of me now, Mary, but I think we can get quite a bit done. But a summary is a brief statement that presents main points in a concise form. Well, we know that. But here is a biggie. You know, she doesn't share lots and lots of research, but this is one that was shared in our training about the importance of teaching kids to summarize. Well, I think as teachers, we all know that, but it's just a hard skill, isn't it? It's one of the 8 types of instruction having solid scientific basis for improving comprehension in readers. So it's a writing skill, but I mean, it can be done orally, but we know that our expectation is it's going to be in the written word, but it improves comprehension. So why teach it? We've really just kind of talked about that. I do want to, again, reference about the main idea. We must use the term central idea. But before you can summarize, these are the skills you've got to have. You've got to have some background information on what you're supposed to summarize. You can't summarize what you don't know anything about. And then we comprehend, again, must comprehend the source material. And, you know, got to be able to underline effectively, take notes, and paraphrase. So here is, or are some teacher considerations. Do your students have sufficient knowledge? What is the purpose of the summary? And what is the format? And that's what we're getting ready to move into, the 3 formats, and then we'll move into the NPO, and then we'll be done. But we're getting ready to move into learning about these 3 formats to help students do summary sentences in a way, or how to do a summarization using a sentence, the outline, or the combined outline. So, Mary, we'll go ahead and stop here, and so that you can get the link. So everybody goes ahead and gets their certificate.
Okay. All righty.
But I think I am correct. It'll only be about 30 minutes.
I just dropped it in the chat, Carol. So if you all need, if they need to go ahead and hop off because of something else going on, we will continue to record, and you can finish up the last 30 minutes or so at a later time. We will put the recording in as soon as we get it ready. Carol had a question in the chat. Some of the templates may not be in the book or in our folder, but they can be found online, right?
Yes, yes.
so that's why they needed to register on the Writing Revolution site, because they can get to the templates
Yes,
there.
you can get anything that says book resources you have access to, and the book resources are all the templates.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
if I failed or overlooked one that's not in your folder, I think I have them all, but you know, they could be creating new ones every day and posting them.
If you all choose to stay for the extended time and you just want to wait on filling in the survey, that is perfectly fine too. If some of you are planning to hang around, you can hold off and do it after we get finished. Are you going to give them a little break, Carol, or are we going to just keep
Whatever
moving
you
forward?
want to do, whatever you think's best, whatever they feel is best.
Whatever you all feel is best. Should we take a little break for those of you hanging with us? You can drop in the chat, just type break, or just say, I'm good. We're good to go. Either way is good for us.
Yeah.
All right. They're good. We got
All
one
right,
that's good.
let's go on then.
We'll keep marching.
Okay, we are going to, these are the three types of summaries: a summary sentence, a single paragraph outline, or a combined outline, which is an outline that contains the summary sentence and the single paragraph. So when we're thinking, this is a great way to introduce the summary sentence. Kids are exposed to summary sentences all the time, but they don't know that it's called a summary sentence. And what it is, you're going to see examples of summary sentences. They're used in newspapers, magazines, a library book. They may want to check out, you know, we all look to see what it's about. That's what a summary sentence is. And then we even have now the streaming platforms, you know, Netflix, Max, whatever, you know, there's always a summary sentence to perk your interest, because the purpose of a summary sentence is to captivate us and, you know, get us interested in whatever it is that we're looking at. A new book, especially because they do go to the library, and when they look at a book, lots of times they'll read what's on the jacket cover or whatever. Those are summary sentences. So summarization is basically an extension of the expansion activity we've already taught students. So what happens is we have a kernel sentence, but we're going to get more information from that kernel sentence. And you can see it says, complete the summary sentence. It's not necessary to use all the question words. Respond only to the ones that are relevant. So let's go back to Winn-Dixie. What would we consider a who or a what, a did or a does or a will do? And the same thing with the kernel sentence that has the arrow pointing to it. It builds up. Well, you want to know what builds up, right? And the on and on and on. So we get all this information about something, and we turn it into a summary sentence. And that's just you looking at the format itself. So here we have how you actually use it. Here's an example. You have an article where you've read something to students, and obviously this is a content piece, and they chose the what because it captures that main idea or that central idea. And so basically, what was this article about? Well, it was about monarch butterflies. Well, what did they do or will they do? Again, it's the what. And the article says they're disappearing. Then we go down to when. See, we're using all those question words again. When? Well, didn't tell us in there, so that's an NA. Where, why, so on and so on. And they have gathered the information, and now they're going to put it into a summary sentence. And what they don't realize until later is they're doing a topic sentence. They're leading the sentence summary. The monarch butterflies are disappearing in Mexico because farmers are killing milkweed plants. We have a whole summary of what this article's about. And here is an example from a textbook doing the summary sentence. And one thing that within the training they really emphasize for us is that, especially with your 3-5 kids, it's your think aloud for this, introducing this should be very explicit. And again, there are a couple of really good videos of teachers leading kids implementing this strategy, the summary sentence. You know, you're being introduced to it in a very quick way, and you may want more information and more clarification on this. And you already know this one. While some consider juices healthy, dietitians argue they are harmful for your health. That summarizes that whole article about the juices. But why were they able to write that? Because they did all these other things. They went in, and the things that we want them doing, excuse me, the things that we want them doing anytime they do an on-demand prompt, we want them to go in and find the evidence. So these are a little bit like, these are just taking students deeper than what the sentence expansion did and using the outline. Now, here's where the big one comes together. This is the third type of summary that you can have kids do, and it's on the combined outline. So take just a second and look at that. You have the template, like I said, in your folder or online. But here, then you have on the right side there, you have arrows showing you that a summary sentence becomes the topic sentence. And here we are doing the same other things. But they can't write a summary sentence until they do the question words above. So this is kind of putting it all in one place for you to move students along. And here is another example about cleaning, an article about cleaning dirty sponges. The thing on the combined outline is you're giving them the topic, you're giving them the article. They come up with the question, answer the question words to get it started, and then they do a summary sentence, which will turn into their topic sentence. Now they have to find the details that only address what their summary sentence / topic sentence is saying. So it's moving them to another level of thinking skills is really what it is doing. Now, here are some teacher tips for us. Bullet number 2 was emphasized to us over and over, and it was please, you don't just put these out there because they're in a certain order. Kids have to have lots and lots of practices with it. And as students move up and grade level. Some of this, like the combined outline, fifth graders may not be ready for it. It may be something that will happen in sixth grade. And this is where your teacher expertise comes in. We're giving you all these strategies and activities, but you know what your students need the most. So we're giving you lots of information to choose from. Okay, now we're getting ready to move into our last activity. It's our final support that's found in the writing revolution. And it is intended for students that are ready to move on to longer compositions. Now, I know from on-demand writing teaching, we have to force them there sometimes. But at least you have some tools now to help you with it. But, the challenges that students face in essay writing is getting started. First of all, writing that introduction, that's where the summary sentence sometimes helps, doing those strategies for that, and staying focused to the finish line, I guess you'd say, that stamina, in other words. So here you have, it's so funny that you ask about the resources. Here is the actual, this will take you straight to the templates. The books, writingrevolution.org/book-resources. And what you're looking at there is the multiple paragraph outline with having 4 paragraphs, if you want your students to have 4. In teaching this at first, I would start with 2. They've got to learn the process and the expectations. But this is another tool to help students organize their thoughts and ideas. So here are the whys. And if you'll flip over and look at page 153 real quick with me. Chapter 7 is all about the multiple paragraph outline. And as and when we look on 155, the subtitle is Take It Slow, Introducing Level 1 to MPO. So you're going to stay, you've got to build up to this. This is where we want to get them to, but it takes a little while. So here are the prerequisites before you introduce the multiple paragraph outline. And here you're seeing one for 3 paragraphs. They have to be able to develop a topic sentence that reflects the main idea. We've done a lot of work getting there. They have to be able to write supporting details in note form, and that note form is up to you. Using keywords and phrases, abbreviations and symbols, and then construct a coherent paragraph. In other words, everything we've done has ultimately led us to students being able to do this. And here's where we bring in the composition terms even. We're talking about a thesis statement. And here we have is the main idea, central idea. So what you want the thesis statement to do is whatever the body paragraphs are going to be about, we want them to jump out in the thesis statement. We're going to explicitly teach kids how to do that. You on this form, you actually write out a full sentence on this outline. So we have the topic sentence and the supporting details, but let's move on and look at an example. Now, there's a lot of information on this page, so we're going to look at it closely. What you're seeing on the left side, obviously, is a blank with instructions. But all you're seeing filled out on the right side is a sentence and details. That's because we don't go into the introduction and conclusion yet. They've read something or been given text on something about Michelle Obama's legacy. And the first thing they do is look for those keywords and phrases using the abbreviations and symbols, in other words, note taking. And we're looking at building the thesis statement. So read the thesis statement. And then quickly skim through the details that have been chosen. Do you feel that that thesis statement addresses it? Well, obviously in this one it did, because it's our model practice. But look over in the main idea column. This paragraph, I looked for details that were about a healthier nation. And so that's what my topic sentence is going to be about. That's why the TS is there. What I looked for my third paragraph is what it said, the article said about educational opportunity. So my topic sentence will have to be based on what I have, the details that I've found. So this is a very involved type strategy, the MPO is, especially when kids are first learning it. But after they learn it, because they have had all the other strategies, it becomes much easier for them. And then we have, this is just telling you, these are for you. These are just telling you the how the MPO fits every text structure, whether it's time order sequence or compare, contrast. And see, you can change the language for your kids in the main idea. And that brings us to argument, because this is what we're looking for in an argument. Claim, counterclaim, and then maybe the claim to finish it up. Or it could be claim, counterclaim, continue on, whatever level that you're teaching. And then you have over here the pro and con on the left side. What is the pro of juicing? What is the con of juicing? But the point I'm trying to make right here, and what they've really embedded in us, have kids look for the details first. Don't move them into, because that's where they're always blindsided. How do I get started? How do I get started? Well, the main way most of them are getting started is, I'm going to tell you about. And so by starting with looking for the key details first is always the best way to handle the multiple paragraph outline and even the single paragraph outline, focusing here. So here you see an example. The teacher has given the thesis statement to the students. They find the details that will address the thesis statement. And this, again, this is just an example with what the teacher expectation would be. And you can come back to this. But here are some reminders about the MPO. They have to have ample practice with the SPO and all those activities that I shared that were scaffolding to it, and that model the MPO and practice as a whole class. Now, the thesis statement will be the only complete sentence on the MPO. Everything else, they want you using the information and the symbols, the notes. And the thesis statement should include a clear plan of development. Here's all the things, but how do we do that? Well, we're going to get into that right now. when we do the introduction paragraph. You know, the introduction paragraph sets forth the topic, captures the interest of your reader. So let's look at example 1 and example 2. And I'm just going to walk you through it. Example 1 is very vague and repetitive. The student doesn't have a clear plan of what they're going to write about. And the main thing, and this is so good for teachers, for you to have this language, when you look at the introduction, how can you come up with categories to put in your body paragraph? Because we can't pick anything out of that. Now, example 2 obviously is a much stronger student and a better writer, but they did the same thing. They did the same thing as example 1. First of all, they gave away too much information. They took information that should have been in the body paragraphs and have in their introductory paragraphs. So even strong students are not going to do well in writing if it's just not a natural ability for them. So here is the tool that it is advocated, and it's on page 168 through 170 in the book. You have information to go back to, and it even clarifies it a little more. But the Honkman method uses this specific method writing an introductory paragraph, and it's called the GST, and you've already seen a little bit of it. And where it originally came from was a book that was widely used in American colleges, the St. Martin's Handbook. Now, it's not used that much anymore because it's considered out of date. And a lot of teachers, especially high school teachers, think it is too formulaic. But the intent of using this to teach kids how to write an introductory paragraph is to give them a tool, just like we did with scrambled sentences or any of the other activities that have led up to this point. Now we're going to give them a recipe for writing an introductory paragraph. And it starts with the general statement. As you can see, it's an inverted triangle because we want the introductory paragraph to start out a little broad, the first sentence. The second sentence can get into more specific statements. And then the thesis statement becomes the whole main idea of the composition. So the general statement establishes the theme and focus without giving away specific detail. The specific statement will begin to identify a couple of things: the text, the event, or the person that you're going to tell about. And this is where it all comes together in the thesis statement. I know that's very, very quick. That's why I referred you back to the pages in the book, and also there are things in your tips sheet for this. But once you really break it down, it's I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's not as hard as it looked on that page, is what I'll say. And here's an example of it. This is a scaffolding exercise of how you show kids where the sentences will be within an introduction. You're going to have the general statement. I have to leave that over here. The general statement is the United States has many beautiful cities to visit. And now we get specific and we share one. Washington, D.C., blah, 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 blah. And then here's where it all comes together. The museums, the monuments, and the parks are favorites of visitors. And you look at that thesis statement, what could our paragraphs be about? What could the paragraphs be about? Well, we have a lot there: museums, monuments, parks and those kind of things, because this is big and broad. We've said the United States has many, but we're going to focus on one, Washington, D.C. And here are some of the things they have. And then the supporting details in the other paragraphs become about some of these things you've listed, and you can add more, but you're showing in your introductory paragraph what you're going to write about. So here are activities for it, and we're going to go quick. As you can see, each one on this one, these activities, you're going to give students the sentences, and they're going to identify which one's a general statement, which one is a supporting, excuse me, turn that back over. I'm getting tired too. Specific statement, and which one is the thesis. See, in this mixed up one, it's the general statement that would actually start is in the middle. So that's what we're trying to get kids to do, is understand which is which. And then here we go again. Given a statement and a thesis statement, write the general statement, and on and on. These are so self-explanatory. I don't want to keep going over each one of them, but it tells you exactly. Now, here's an example of how you can even take some written work. Kids don't need to know who they are, but see if they can figure out from past students or whatever, can they figure out where the introductory paragraph is, the introduction paragraph, and can they figure out, are those three pieces in it? Now, you know as well as I do that an introductory paragraph can contain more than that. And that's why there's some people will not use this suggestion because it's too formulaic. Well, you got to start somewhere, just like we did with all the sentence activities. And I don't know about you, but I know that most of our high school students struggle with all of this. So I would try it. You know whether it's going to work for you, but then here is given an introduction and an MPO, write the conclusion. Now here we go again. Notice on the left side what we're starting with. We started with the details, and they're given the thesis statement. And here we write, there's the example of writing the conclusion. And I had it covered up, but this is pulling in the charts again. Here is our emphasis chart. So I know you're tired, and I'm tired, and you're probably thinking, when is this going to end? Well, it's ending right now. So that was speed lightning. I would have gone into more detail, but I've got to figure out how to hone this down a little bit to get into some of these things. But you always have access to Mary or me, and here this just sums up the whole training. These are the important things that the Hockman method does not want you to forget. And right here, again, the free resources for you, that's the exact website. Now, there is a resource library that you have to buy a subscription to. And because I had the training, I had free access to it. So I don't know how much it is, but if any of you are interested, there's the resource library. Email to find out more information about it. And I don't know what they'll ask you. I don't know anything about it, but you can say you've had training from someone who has actually had the TWR training. So I don't know whether that will impact the cost or not. I just don't know. But right here is our contact information, and thank you all so much.